Okay, so joining us right now, the filmmakers of HBO's Wild Card, the Craig Carton story, are Marie McGovern and Martin Dunn. Marie, Martin, good morning. Thanks for joining us. How are you guys?
It's a pleasure. Good morning, Gio. How are you?
Well, we're doing great.
Thanks.
So, Marie and Martin, I just want to say, I've seen the documentary. I thought you did a tremendous job. It looks good, and, I look really good in it, so I appreciate that. But let's get started. Like, who came to you with the idea to do this, and how hard was it to put it together when Craig was in jail?
Well, really, it was Craig came to us, and what happened was years ago we had met Craig very briefly when we were filming a pilot for a sports chat show development idea that never ended up going anywhere. But, years later, that fateful day when Craig was arrested, we reached out to him, and all we said was, we're tabloid journalists. We know what a nightmare it can be in New York City when you're in the public eye in the way he was, and we're still your friend. And if you need anything or if you need any help, we're here. And all he texted back was just a very simple thanks, and we never heard anything else from him. And it wasn't until after he went to trial and got convicted, but before he got sentenced, he ended up giving us a call. We had gotten a little bit of press about the fact that we were doing the Tom Seaver documentary, and we were just finishing it up. And he called us up one day and he said, well, if Tom Seaver, who is a notoriously private man, can trust you to tell his story, well, then I guess I can trust you to tell mine. I'd like to talk about what happened, and I'd like to tell you my story.
So I was going to say, Martin, did anything really surprise you as you were putting this story together and as the story started to basically flush itself out?
Everything surprised me, Boomer. When Craig came in that first time and talked to us, it was jaw-dropping, really. But I think in essence what Craig really wanted to do was to put his story, put his issues into some sort of context and into some sort of perspective. There'd been so many stories written about Craig in the press that he hadn't really participated in, and I think this was one opportunity that he had to try and set the record straight. And that's what we tried to do in the film.
Yeah, at least give people an understanding of how and why it happened.
Marie McGovern and Martin Dunn, producers of the filmmakers of this documentary about Craig Carton, are joining us this morning. And Marie, I guess what I would like to ask you is, before he went to trial, he was very public about his innocence. And, he kept telling us all that, he was innocent, that all of this was, the government was after him because of his, popularity and everything else like that. Did you guys believe everything that he was telling you as this thing was unfolding?
That's we sat down and we listened to Craig, and what we tried to do was corroborate what he was telling us. We backed up everything that he told us with regard to the crazy amounts of money that he was gambling, with regard to the people that he was involved in. We went through all of that, and we dug up all of the research, and we spoke to all of the right people to corroborate every piece of information that was in the film. Did Craig get everything right with regard to his story? No, but I think that was a part of the year-long process of coming to understand his issues.
Yeah, and I think Boomer, what Craig would say is that there was an acceptance after the trial. There was a real acceptance of the issues and what had happened to him, and he came to really accept that.
And understand that, what he was being charged with, it was not necessarily what the public thought that he had done wrong.
Now, this may be a difficult question to ask because I'm trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes who doesn't know anything about the story, and we know everything about the story. But let's say this is a national thing. Craig's a very New York local person. Someone in the middle of the country that's watching this and comes to the end of it. Do you expect them to, feel bad for him? Like, what was the sort of, at the end of it, the audience is supposed to feel what with this, in your opinion?
I think, Joe, that this is a real human interest story. I think it's a story of someone who spent 30 years getting to the very top of his profession, who made some wrong difficult decisions and caused himself issues that he shouldn't have done, and saw that success taken away. I think when you watch the film, though, the most telling part will be at the end, when you see Craig after he comes out of prison. And that is a very, very interesting and different Craig, I think, than you see in the rest of the film.
Yeah, because I think you guys started the film before he went to jail. Am I right?
That's right, yeah. We spent several days over many months with Craig before he went to jail.
And did you actually have access to Lewisburg Prison?
We went to see Craig several times in prison, and
we didn't film him though, Boomer.
We weren't allowed to film him there, but we did go and see him there, and that was a very sobering experience, I think, for both of us, for us as filmmakers, and for Craig as well.
You know, I was wondering why in the film, because I've seen it now and I've watched it twice. I wanted to make sure that I got all of it, and really, I think you guys did a really, really good job explaining everything. But the one thing that I wonder, and I kind of know the answer, but I think the audience would like to know the answer, is Craig seeking help for the issues that he has? Because, from the child molestation that we never knew about here, to the gambling addiction that created this problem for him in his life, is he getting help for that on a daily basis?
Well, I can't speak to the fact of whether or not he's getting help on a daily basis, but look, it was a lifetime in the creation of these issues, and Craig certainly is the one who can speak to that with regard to therapy and getting help, but it certainly is a lifelong process. It's not something that is easily solved overnight, certainly, and I think what he is doing, though, and what he has been doing is working on it.
I think, Boomer, that you see again in the film, you'll see an acceptance from Craig of those issues and a willingness to deal with them.
Yeah. And I hope so, and I hope he is getting help, and I do believe he is. But the other thing that really struck me as the molestation charges, I found out about them in his defense, and he was talking about how he was molested in camp and everything else. Did you guys actually research that and go back? Because I would think that you would be able to find that person who did what Craig is claiming he did. Now, I also know people in Craig's life that have told me that he has spoken about this to them many, many years ago. And I remember his reaction to the whole Sandusky-Penn State situation that took place and how intense he was during that time. I'm just wondering, how deep did you go back into his past to find out if, in fact, those claims were true?
Well, we certainly. Well, Craig had told us that he had written a chapter about the sexual abuse for his book in 2013, his book Loudmouth, but that the publishers chose not to put that chapter into the book because they felt it didn't fit in with the tone of everything else that the book was about. We spoke to the publishers, and they confirmed that they had read that chapter back in 2013, way before any of these issues blew up. So we were very comfortable that those issues had happened. It was, I have to say, as filmmakers, it was one of the more wrenching moments when we sat down and Craig actually read excerpts from that chapter for the film. And when you see it, I think you can't help but be touched by how emotional he becomes during that period of the film when he's talking about that.
And we thought it was very important to include that in the film, much to your point, Boomer, when you said that it came out during his defense and in his sentencing. And there were a lot of folks that, wrongly accused Craig of trying to garner sympathy by bringing this up or even making this up. So we thought it was important to include that and to include that important piece of information that, yes, this was written many, many years ago. This did happen to him, and it really did kind of answer all of those questions that everybody had about why Craig was so viciously angry during the whole Sandusky event.
Talking to Martin Dunn and Marie McGovern, the filmmakers of HBO's Wild Card, the Craig Carton story. Now, when Craig is so heavily involved and he reaches out to you and he says, I'm trusting you to tell my story, and he narrates the thing, can it be looked at as not so much a documentary, but a promotional vehicle for him to be able to get back on the air, which is probably going to happen at some point?
I don't think so, Joe, because the things that Craig opens up about are so emotional and so personal and so candid that it's just not something that you would choose to do as a promotional vehicle. It's really a sort of, I think, really from Craig's perspective, what he wanted to do was to put his story into perspective. And there are many people out there, there are millions of Craig fans out there who will be interested in the full story, and this was his opportunity to put that story forward. And what was really interesting was also the fact that many of his former colleagues and friends, you guys many of you guys at WFAN participated and also gave your perspective on Craig, and I think that gives fans of the station a really complete picture of what happened with Craig.
So your documentary will premiere tomorrow night on HBO at 9 p.m. I often told people, and you guys are friends of Craig, so you know Craig away from the radio station. I knew him in this studio. And all my friends used to say, that Craig Carton's crazy. He's crazy. And I used to call him Captain Chaos all the time. He had a number of different issues, whether it be Tourette's, OCD, ADD, restless leg syndrome. It was a mess. It was, but it also created a tremendous showman. And I would always say that when he came into the studio, that wasn't the Craig Carton that I knew outside the studio. That this was a guy who was putting on a show. He was a caricature. Or a character, I should say. And I think it's one of the reasons why guys like Jerry Seinfeld and all the comedians that would come through here really did appreciate Craig's brilliance on radio, because he was creating an event for people to join in. And, I'm a real person. I'm a former NFL athlete. I'm on TV doing NFL games on Sunday, and I'm here. And I'd like to think that I do have a lot of credibility in that area. But he was the wild card. And that's one of the reasons why I think this thing, when you see it, you see the other side of who Craig Carton as a human being is.
I think we hope that comes across, because it's very easy to forget there is a real person here, a real human being, a guy with family
and friends and life
and issues. And I think one of the things that Craig wanted to do was to really express all these things, and other people who may be in similar situations may get some sort of comfort from this, knowing that other guys go through it. And I think Craig is very cognizant of that.
Yeah, I think he is too, and I'm sure he's listening right now as we're interviewing you guys. Do you think he's changed from where he was prior to the arrest to where he is today in terms of understanding exactly who he hurt? And do you think that there are people that he did hurt in this particular situation that are going to go public in a negative way towards your documentary?
Well, there's always a chance that people, will look at it in those terms. We hope that they look at it as a complete story. But I think, to be honest, you can't go through what Craig has been through without it affecting you in some really deep way.
Right. This was a man who went through one of the darkest moments of his life that anybody could go through. I don't know how you could emerge and not have it become some kind of a change, some kind of a profound change deep inside you.
But I think the one thing that comes out from the documentary, Boomer, is, and you've seen it, and I hope you might agree with this, when you see Craig at the end, there is a real acceptance, I think, that the issues that he was dealing with affected other people, and I think he had a realization that what he did affected others. And I think, particularly, guys on the show, I think that was something that came across very strongly.
Right.
I think so too. But I also know that one Al Dukes is very upset that he didn't get more airtime. Hey, Al, you're on. Do you have any questions for these guys, Marie and Martin?
No, I think you hit on it earlier. The only question I had is I wasn't sure in watching the documentary whether there was showing what he's doing now as far as getting help for as Boomer brought up, not one but two really big situations.
Well, I think that's something that Craig, when and if you do hear from him in the future, he will be addressing that.
Yeah, now we want to know, is there going to be an Al Dukes documentary? Is that in the works?
Well, that's our sequel. That's something that we'd like to start working on now. Al, and I will say that Al has been absolutely spectacular and wonderful with regard to the supply of his photos. And yes, Al, we did use your photo for the poster, and we did credit appropriately. Made sure that everybody knows. So. We'll be coming out with the coloring book, the wild card coloring book.
Oh, that's good. One other thing for me would be like, is there any one of us that gave you an interview or gave you an answer that you didn't expect?
All of you.
All of you.
Really?
Everybody was so candid. I mean, one of the things that really was great was that everybody we spoke to, but especially the guys from WFAN, were remarkably candid and remarkably open. But also underpinning all that was you could sense the real affection that everybody had for Craig.
And the respect for
his talent. And I think that comes across very, very strongly.
Were there people that you had reached out to that you really wanted for this that declined?
No. Everybody that we asked to participate participated.
No. Well, I'll tell you what, I've seen it twice now. I think our listeners, whether you like Craig or you don't, are going to really get, I think, entrenched in it. I think it's interesting. The good thing is that, somehow, some way, he'll be back on the radio, whether it be here or somebody else, somewhere else. But I also know that the people that remained behind remained on a number one morning radio show without him. And we did so because we stay together as a team. And we always will be a team. And Gio's a big part of that team now. And wherever Craig goes and starts a new team, I'm sure he will be supremely successful like he was when he was here. Martin, Maria, I appreciate you guys coming on this morning, doing what I think was a really good job with this documentary. And hopefully people see it the way that I saw it, as we were the ones that were most affected outside of his family, because it happened in real time, live on the air. In HD, and it was not an easy day to get through and not an easy 6 months to get through in the middle of all of that.
Indeed not. Well, we hope we're glad you appreciate the film, Boomer, and
we appreciate all of your
participation.
It really completed the film and gave a complete picture, and we're very proud of that.
All righty, man. Good luck to you guys. HBO tomorrow night, 9 p.m. on Radio Loudmouth. I guess the story of the end of downfall, where Craig's career came to a halt, but it will get restarted shortly, I'm sure. So good luck to you guys, and thanks for coming on this morning.
Thanks
so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.